Chapter 21. Today's plan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 21. Today's plan. If you are going back at midnight, what do you want to do for the time being? Arthur asked her. Veronica pondered for a while. Truthfully, her heart was pounding hard out of pure nervousness. This time, she really screwed up. She couldn't imagine what would happen if the temple found out about her breaking the rules. Since worrying over it wouldn't change anything, she decided not to think about it altogether. At least, for now. To do so, she needed to keep herself busy until nightfall. She answered, "Since you said that I have to repay you for your kindness, let me help you with the chores. I'm good at cleaning, washing clothes, and gardening." Arthur narrowed his eyes. He was only teasing her. When he helped her, he didn't think of meeting her again. Since she came up with the idea of passing her time, he didn't mind as long as she helped him in the process. He questioned her, "What about cooking?" Veronica gave him an honest reply, "If you want me to peel vegetables and chop them for you, I can do that. But, I have never cooked." "Fine, finish tidying every inch of my house before noon and then help me cook." After instructing her, Arthur returned his attention to finishing his meal. "Okay." Veronica was excited as she was assigned to a new task. But, her excitement flew out of the window just as she started cleaning the house. Last night, she didn't notice that this house was huge. She only thought it simply had a living room, dining room, kitchen, washroom, and a bedroom. She was totally unaware of the huge library that was attached to this building. It was a public library. All the scholars came to this library to study and borrow books. Forget about cleaning, she was gaping at the tall bookshelves filled with various books of multiple languages. Although she had heard of other languages, she had never seen books written in so many languages being gathered in one place. In the temple, there is a library for everyone's use. It only had religious books, history books, law books, and philosophy books. Here, they have books on history, geography, philosophy, politics, economics, romance, fantasy, and so on. Veronica was wearing an olive green-colored dress and a brown-colored apron over it. Her hair was tied into a bun and covered with a scarf. Since it was frequented by readers at every hour of the day, Arthur made her cover her head entirely so that no one would notice her unusual hair. "I thought you were going to help me cook," Arthur came behind her and commented. Veronica was standing on a ladder and brushing off the dust. Her face was covered with a mask since she was sneezing because of the dust. She looked down and saw Arthur staring at her. She replied, "If I knew I had to clean a library, I wouldn't have promised to help you in the kitchen. What time is it? Can I help you after I'm done with this bookshelf?" Arthur stated, "I'm afraid not. It's 1 o'clock. Lunch is ready. Wash up and join me." Veronica quickly came down. She didn't hesitate in the slightest, as if she was used to climbing up and down a ladder. "I'm sorry, I broke my promise. I will definitely make it up to you." Arthur patted her shoulder. "I'm looking forward to it, Nika." "Nika." Veronica was confused. Arthur turned around and walked toward the corridor that led to his house. While walking, he narrated in detail, "Isn't your name Veronica? If your pet name is Ver, it means others already call you that. I decided to call you something else. So, I will call you Nika." Veronica followed him from behind. "We aren't close enough to call each other by nicknames, don't you think so?" She was spiteful while complaining. "Didn't you say I'm your friend?" Arthur reminded her of their breakfast conversation. "It's because I needed your help," she mumbled grudgingly. She had no intention of being close to a man who saw her maiden body when he wasn't even married to her. She wished she could avoid him forever. But, she was in debt. Arthur turned around and asked her, "Did you say something?" Veronica vigorously shook her head. "Not at all." Arthur turned around and threw a remark at her, for a woman to sleep in a man's bed for a whole night, their relationship must be closer than normal friends. Veronica's face burned in embarrassment. I didn't mean to sleep in your bed. Moreover, wasn't it you who carried me to the bed? Oh, I gave you a gentlemanly service. Did you like it? He inquired. Veronica glared at his back without giving him a reply. Somehow this whole conversation and the situation seemed ridiculous to her. After lunch, Veronica finished the remaining task. Later, she took a short nap in the living room and went out with Arthur in the evening for sightseeing. When Arthur covered her head with the cape hood, she complained, "Why do I have to cover my hair now? I don't like to cover my hair." Arthur lectured her, "Princess, you have no idea how the world works. If you don't want to get in any trouble and want me to save you, you should cover your hair." He would always call her princess in a mockery tone whenever she showed how NAVE she was. Fine, I will cover my hair, but why a cape? Why can't I stroll around like those girls over there? Veronica looked at those girls in the street, walking along with their partners or family members. Your eyes are enough to catch others' attention. Men like pretty women. If a guy falls for your beauty and kidnaps you afterward to make you his wife, what will you do? You can't even win against a drunk man. This time, Veronica couldn't complain anymore. Her lips were sealed. Suddenly, she thought of something and said, "So, you think I'm pretty?" She peeked on his expression and asked, "Does this mean you like me?" Chapter 22. Don't provoke men. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 22. Don't provoke men. So, you think I'm pretty? Veronica peeked at his expression and asked, "Does this mean you like me?" She was wearing a deep blue dress, her boots and an olive green cape. The cape belonged to Arthur. As for her dress, he found it in a servant's room who was long gone. Since Veronica wasn't picky about wearing second-hand goods, he didn't buy new clothes for her. Arthur was wearing a brown shirt and black pants. His black hair was slicked to one side. He paused upon hearing her question and turned to face her. His golden orbs were sharply staring at her, trying to find out her intention. When he couldn't, he asked her back, "Where are you trying to go with this conversation?" Veronica shrugged and went along with his question, should this conversation need any destination. Arthur muttered, "Even a road has its ending." Observing her confused gaze, he sighed and stated, "Princess, you shouldn't provoke a man." Veronica tilted her head. "When did I provoke you?" She was confused. She just asked if he liked her not. Can't a human like others? How is it provoking to just ask, she wondered. Arthur mentioned, "Just now you did." Veronica resigned to his complaint, "All right, I did. So what?" Arthur fully turned toward her. "Do you want to know what happens if you provoke a man?" Noticing that he abruptly became serious, she became slightly nervous. "I'm not sure about that. This kind of thing." Saying that, he slowly approached her. She stepped backward. She became tense. "Why? You are scaring me." "Am I?" Arthur asked as he raised an eyebrow. He slowly walked closer, one step at a time. It seems his aura completely changed. Veronica stepped backward until her back touched a cold wall. She was startled. Only then she realized that they were in an alley where no one was around them. The surrounding air felt completely different. She was so nervous that she stopped breathing. Within a few seconds, he came closer and placed his left hand beside the right side of her head. Then, he pressed his right knee in between her legs. Veronica jumped when she sensed something touching around her private area. She tried to move, but her legs were jammed because of his knee. Arthur left no chance for her to escape. He leaned his head. His hair tickled her face. She flinched. His right hand softly touched her cheek and ran his thumb over her soft skin. His warmth traveled all over her body. Her body heated up in the process. Her heart was thumping aloud. A sweet perfume entered her nostrils as his face inched closer. Together with the perfume, a soft feeling touched her precious lips. It was a light peck, but Veronica trembled as an electrifying sensation ran through her. Arthur attentively held her face and let go of her lips before giving her a deep kiss. He could sense her breaths quivering against his cheek. Because she was being bold with a man she barely knew, he intended to incite a little bit of wariness from her. It wasn't that he was as worried that other men would take advantage of her. He wanted to teach her some lessons. If she was so eager to roam around the world, she needed to learn what kind of place this world was. Veronica squeezed her eyes shut. Her heartbeat escalated. She couldn't have assumed that her savior would be the predator. Arthur took out his tongue and licked her lips. He heard her gasp in surprise. It was her first time experiencing this, in a sane condition of mind. He took advantage of her open mouth and inserted his tongue in her mouth. Her hot breaths tickled his face. He pulled her closer, leaving no gap between them. Veronica shuddered when his tongue explored her mouth. She tried to move her face to the other side, but he held her face firmly. She pushed his chest, but he didn't budge. This foreign object invaded her territory without her permission. His wet, warm soft tongue roamed around without hesitation. She found the sensation very weird. Her face heated up. Her body was growing hot. Veronica moved her tongue away, not letting him touch her possession, but he persistently found her and wrapped his tongue around her. Her fingers subconsciously clutched his shirt and let out a low moan in his persistent stimulation. The corner of his lips lifted. He sucked her tongue and then lovingly teased her. He sensed her hands losing strength. Veronica lost her balance. Her legs gave out and she collapsed. Her head was buzzing and her heart was thumping. She felt like she went on a long journey. She gasped for air. Arthur caught her when she slumped forward. His long fingers brushed over her cheek and tugged a few strands of her hair behind. He embraced her until she could stand on her own feet. Veronica panted softly and looked at him with tearful eyes. Her emerald eyes were blaming him for being mean to her. "Why did you do it?" Arthur's gaze deepened as he asked, "Are you upset?" "Upset," she exclaimed. He just kissed her without her permission and he asked her if she was upset or not. "Did you know how I felt since I saw Sister Ruth's dead body? And, now you do this to me. Who do you think I am?" She sobbed and vented out everything that she locked up in her chest. She wasn't sad. She didn't feel pitiful. She was mad at herself because she made a huge mistake. She was angry at Sister Ruth for taking her own life. She wished to find out why Sister Ruth killed herself. She wanted to do something so that she could make up for her mistake. However, this guy took advantage of her when she believed in him and made fun of her. It was humiliating. Arthur put his finger under her chin and raised her face. "Who are you blaming? You are the one who provoked me. And now you are blaming me." Chapter 23. The argument. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Arthur narrowed his eyes. "Who are you blaming? You are the one who provoked me. And now you are blaming me. Don't you think you needed to be taught a lesson so that you never do it again?" Veronica stated, "I believed in you. Did I tell you to trust me?" Arthur questioned her. "You did everything on your own. You have no right to blame others when you suffer because of your actions." Veronica remarked, "You are the worst person I've ever met." Tears were streaming from her eyes. Her eyes were blaming him for everything. Arthur didn't show any reaction. He lectured her, "Princess, all humans are like this. They will take advantage of the weak people. Didn't you meet a guy who almost raped you? Compared to that, this kiss is nothing. You should be happy that that drunk man only tried to you. Humans can do worse than that. You are insane. What can be worse than?" Veronica argued back. Arthur calmly told her, go, walk on your own. Do whatever you want. You will find out what is scarier than getting raped. You are so cruel. Veronica burst into tears and ran away. Tisk. Arthur clicked his tongue in annoyance. He didn't mean to be so harsh on her. But, her tears drove him mad. He covered his eyes and took a deep breath. When he uncovered his eyes, she was long gone. Since she wanted to have an adventure, she can do whatever she wants. Veronica ran for a long time. She only stopped when her legs hurt. She was running blindly without noticing where she was. She looked around and found herself in the woods. She wiped her tears and inhaled sharply. The greenery and the choir of birds and gnats calmed her down. When she cooled her head, she began to think about their conversation. You are the one who provoked me. And now you are blaming me. You did everything on your own. You have no right to blame others when you suffer because of your action. They will take advantage of the weak people. Humans can do worse than that. Maybe I was too harsh on him, she pondered. He had helped me so much and I told him I hated him. I'm the worst. She covered her face and sat on the root of a huge tree. But he said there are worse things than what I experienced at that place. How can there be anything worse than this? Just thinking of that night with the drunk man made her shiver. Only those who have experienced things like that can understand the true horror. What am I going to do now? The sun is setting. I don't know which way to go to the temple. She put her chin in between her palms as she wondered in a gloomy mood. And, he even kissed me. Her face reddened from thinking about that. She touched her lips and reminisced about the unique, passionate sensation she had felt. It felt good, she couldn't help but praise his kissing skill. Instantly she came back to her senses. What am I thinking? I shouldn't think about things like that. A girl should be reserved and proper, she reprimanded herself. Her random thoughts were cut short by a screech by an unknown bird from somewhere in the woods. The sky was getting darker. She decided to walk in the direction she came from. As she was walking, she heard some rustling and groan. She looked around and saw no one. For some reason, the wind seemed to stop blowing. The leaves weren't moving. There shouldn't be any rustling sound of the leaves. Did I hear wrong? Veronica wondered. Once again, she heard rustling sounds. It came from a different direction this time. She turned around to look for it. Darkness was spread over the woods. Even the birds and animals stopped making sounds as if they were waiting for something sinister. She had goosebumps. There shouldn't be any ghost around here, right? She pondered. At that moment, she heard a low groan. That's a human voice. Someone must be in danger. Veronica quickly headed toward the source of the sound. Ah! A painful shriek pierced the forest. Veronica's heart shuddered in fear. After walking a few steps, she halted. Her eyes widened in shock. Right before her eyes, she saw a group of people wearing black clothes standing next to a helpless man. Those people were wearing the same clothes like the man who she had followed last night. They gathered in a circle and the helpless man was lying on the ground. His brown clothes were drenched in blood. Veronica heard one of those men saying, "There is still time. Are you going to spill everything or die?" The lying man gasped and replied with hatred, "I'd rather die than speak." The group of men chuckled upon hearing his answer. Their leader said, "We can arrange that." Saying that he used his sword to pierce through that man's heart. Veronica covered her mouth. Her emerald pupils were shaking. Last night, she saw a dead body and this night, she saw people killing a pitiful man. How can be humans so cruel? That thought came to her mind but there was no answer. That's when she remembered what Arthur told her, they will take advantage of the weak people. Humans can do worse than that. He was right. People are bad. They do worse than raping women. They kill people. While thinking, she moved backward and stepped on a dry branch. Crack. The sound of the broken branch made a loud noise in the quiet place. The group of men immediately looked toward the origin of the sound. Their eyes met her. The men began to talk. Is that a girl? What? You never saw a woman before. What's a girl doing in the forest at this time? Their leader said, no matter what she is doing, it's none of our business. She saw us. We have to finish her off so that she cannot speak of today's event to anyone. Chills ran down Veronica's spine. From their conversation, she realized that since she saw them killing a man, she wouldn't be spared. She abruptly turned around and began to run. If she stayed there, she would never be able to see the light of day again. There was no reason to stand there and get herself killed. Chapter 24. A group of killers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. One of them said, she is running away. Their leader commanded them, what are you waiting for? Catch her. You girl. Stop right there. The men chased after her. Why would she stop? When they told her to stop, Veronica increased her pace. And, when she heard the sound of sharp metal, she ran even faster. The sound of the metal reminded her of the sword. She wasn't an athlete. She had no idea from where so much energy was coming from. All she knew that if she stopped, she would die. And, she had no interest in going to the land of no return so soon. Soon, she saw the lights of the town lit up not so far from the woods. Veronica finally found some hope. As long as I'm in a crowded place, they won't dare to hurt me, she thought of that and kept running. Maybe luck wasn't on her side. She tripped on a branch on the ground and couldn't keep her balance. Her body collapsed forward. Her body jerked and the pain rushed through her body, making her feel numb. But, she couldn't back down now. She had to keep going. She clenched her teeth to endure the pain. She wobbled while standing up and continued running. She turned her head around and saw those men almost caught up to her. Her heart shuddered. They could get her at any moment. At that time, her hair was held by someone and pulled her back. Ah! Veronica let out a yelp. Her hands went behind her head. She frowned as her hair was gripped tightly. The one who clasped her hair said, how long are you planning to run, Missy? Do you think you can outrun us with your tiny body? Veronica shouted, let me go. Let you go. Others reached them soon and laughed out loud. The leader came forth and said, just because you said we have to let you go, do you think we will let you go? What an ignorant brat. Veronica retorted, but I caused you no harm. For what reason do you want to harm me? The leader answered, for the reason that you saw something you shouldn't have. He didn't give her another chance to speak and told his men, we have wasted enough time here. Kill her before we have another witness nearby. This place isn't safe. One of them questioned, what if her family comes to look for her? Will they even find her? At night, animals will come and eat her dead meat. I don't think anything will be left for them to recognize. The leader grinned like a sadist. Veronica shuddered in fear. Tears threatened to fall from her eyes, but she held them back. There was no point in showing her weakness to these immoral people, that's what she was thinking. At that time, Arthur's face came to her mind. He was trying to warn her last night but she didn't heed him. She realized how stupid she was. That man was trying to help her by giving her true knowledge. And she, who never stepped outside, acted all high and mighty. She was truly a frog in the well. She admitted that she was an idiot. She acknowledged that she was wrong. She wished to apologize to Arthur and say that he was right all along. However, she was going to die and her body would be devoured by animals. She tried not to give up. Veronica tried to snatch her hand away from their tight grip but they held her hands tighter. Even the man who was gripping her hair, pulled harshly. Another man drew his sword and aimed at her chest. Veronica squeezed her eyes shut. The last thing that came to her mind, "I'm sorry, Arthur. You call yourself men after ganging up to kill a young lady," a lazy voice spoke. That person's presence was so abrupt that everyone was startled. They looked at the source of the sound. Veronica's heart shook. She recognized the voice even without looking. She shouted, "Arthur, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that." Arthur chuckled. "Calm down, princess. I'll hear you later. At first, let me handle these men. It would be better if you close your eyes." "Okay." Veronica shut her eyes obediently. She had learned her lessons. She didn't dare to disobey him. "Princess. Does that mean she is from the royal family? This could be her royal guard." The men seemed nervous. Their leader reprimanded them, "Don't be ridiculous. The royal family doesn't have any princesses. Then, she must be from a rich family. We have got ourselves a big problem. Finish him first. Then, we will deal with this princess," the leader commanded. "Yes." 6 men ran toward Arthur. Veronica wanted to open her eyes when she heard the screaming of those men. Her body trembled. She was worried about Arthur, who came to rescue her. Later, the guy who was gripping her hair, cursed under his breath and threw her aside. Veronica stumbled and then fell to the ground. Even then, she didn't open her eyes. After all the commotion died down, she heard footsteps coming closer. Arthur. Her voice quivered when she called his name. She was so scared that she had no strength in her legs. Someone stood before her and put a hand on her head. "You have done a great job closing your eyes. But, don't open them yet. Are you hurt?" A wave of relief washed over Veronica. No. She shook her head. Arthur let out a sigh of relief. He was truly worried about her. "Good then. Now, get up. We have to leave before it gets any darker. I have no intention of becoming food for animals tonight." Veronica did as he asked. Arthur took her hands and helped her to stand up. Her legs were shaking as she got up. Arthur noticed how she was trembling. "Should I carry you?" he asked. Chapter 25. Open your eyes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. "No, I can walk on my own." Veronica didn't want to burden him any further. She didn't want to show him her spoiled side either. "Then, let's head to the town." Arthur held her hand and walked out of that place. When they left that place behind, Arthur said, "All right, you can open your eyes." Veronica finally opened her eyes and found herself in the town. It was a quiet area, but the lights inside the houses were turned on. Arthur was standing beside her. He looked a bit sweaty. His shirt was drenched in sweats. "What happened to those people?" asked Veronica. Arthur seemed upset. "Is this the only thing you can ask? You could have asked how I'm doing." Veronica hurriedly said, No, I didn't mean to sound uncaring. I know you are okay since you are standing right in front of me. But, I didn't hear anything from them." She was embarrassed that she didn't ask about him. She was being ungrateful. However, she badly wanted to know what happened to those murderers. "I killed them." Arthur's reply was bluntly straightforward. Veronica's eyes widened in shock. "This can't be." Arthur explained unhurriedly so that she wouldn't misunderstand. "If I didn't, they would have hunted us down and killed us both. They would have chased us till the end." Veronica couldn't calm her heart. Ever since last night, the only thing she was seeing was dead bodies. She couldn't understand why they were dying and why they were being killed. Feeling frustrated, she asked, "Why would they?" Arthur asked her back, "Why did they try to kill you?" Veronica hesitated before answering, "I saw them killing someone." Arthur explained, "So, you were a witness." Most certainly you would talk about it when you went back to the town, right? Veronica declared, of course, I would. What they had done was wrong. Arthur concluded, that's why they tried to kill you. Since they saw me, they had to kill me too. And that's the very reason I had to kill them. Veronica lowered her body. She mumbled, so, it was my fault. If I didn't get mad at you and ran away like an idiot, it wouldn't have happened. You had to commit such sin because of me. Seeing her miserable state, Arthur lowered his body as well. He needed to wake her up from her delusion. Wait, did you run away because you knew this was going to happen? Veronica vigorously shook her head. No, I wouldn't have done that if I knew this would happen. Arthur stroked her back and assured her, then, it is not your fault. Whatever happened was an accident. But. Veronica paused and decided not to argue with him. Since he stayed outside more than her, his knowledge was far greater than her. She acknowledged it. She spoke with determination, fine, I will carry the burden of your sin. This way, after death, you don't have to bear the burden of killing a group of men. Carry my sin. Ahahaha. Arthur burst into laughter. He had never heard such a funny thing. Sometimes, you say the most amusing thing, princess. I'm starving. Let's go home and eat something. As he stood up, Veronica wiped her tears and looked at him from the ground. She was amazed at how his words calmed her down. Only then, she saw a red color in his waist. It took her a few seconds to realize that his clothes were drenched in blood. She screamed, ah! You are injured. Arthur replied, it's nothing. Veronica argued back, what do you mean it's nothing? You are bleeding. This was the first time she had seen so much blood. Her mouth widened in horror. Arthur didn't seem to be too affected by his injury. He stated, let's go home and take care of it. Veronica's worry didn't lessen by his words. She voiced her concern, but if you lose too much blood. Arthur snickered and assured her, I'm not a flower that I'll die so easily. It suddenly felt good seeing someone worrying about him. It had been a long time since someone was truly worried about him. As he saw her being worried, he thought it wasn't bad getting injured once in a while. But, humans die so quickly, Veronica lowered her head and muttered softly. How many deaths she had seen in 2 days. A normal woman would have had a trauma seeing dead bodies here and there. That's why Arthur made sure she wasn't looking at the bloody bodies. Arthur patted her shoulder and assisted her to get up. Nothing will happen to me. Veronica interrupted his words. Wait, let me take care of it. Arthur raised an eyebrow. You. Do you know how to dress a wound? No, but I can do this, Veronica seemed determined as she declared. She gathered her hands in front of his waist that was injured and placed her palms above the injury. Arthur saw a sliver glow coming out of her palms. The light gradually turned brighter. His eyes grew wide and his golden orbs quivered in shock. He mumbled, you are a... There was a special room. The floor was adorned with white and black marble stones. The ceiling was too high to be noticed in the dark. At the front of the room was a huge statue. In front of the statue, there was a woman who knelt on the floor praying silently. The woman was wearing a cream-colored dress and a white robe. Her shiny blonde hair was hidden under the robe. There were 13 candles around her. While she was praying, one of the candle lights moved violently for a second and then became still. The woman immediately opened her eyes. Her blue orbs fixed on the candle where the fire was unnaturally unmoved. Her small, pink lips parted for a moment before she came back to her senses. She abruptly stood up and strode toward the door. She forcefully opened the door and headed out. There was no one in the huge building except for her. Her bare feet didn't make any sound as she walked. Chapter 26. The time has come. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Her slender body moved swiftly and the soft breeze kept brushed through her long hair that almost touched the cold floor. Her feet urgently moved in the direction of the inner temple. The head priest was meditating. Whenever someone died under his care, he would meditate the whole night without eating, drinking, or sleeping. He would do that until his heart would stop hurting from the loss of someone precious. He was in the private room where no one would dare to disturb him when he was inside. They knew that he would pray there alone. Just then, the door of this prayer room burst open. The head priest kept his eyes closed and stayed unmoved. The fire and the candles danced when the wind blew in the room after the door was opened abruptly. "How many times do I have to tell you to knock?" the head priest calmly questioned the intruder. The intruder lightly stepped forward. She didn't bother to answer his question. She said, "Something happened." He calmly responded, "What did?" The woman announced, "One of the holy lights, extinguished." The head priest finally opened his eyes. He stood up and slowly turned around. Afterward, he spoke mysteriously, "Then it's time." After the light was out from Veronica's palms, Arthur checked his waist. His injuries were gone without a trace. He didn't even feel pain. It looked like it was never there in the first place. "You are a healer," he muttered softly. Veronica stepped back and commented, "About that, I'm not officially appointed yet." Arthur was astonished. "Are you serious? Have you not used your healing power before?" "There are only a few who have healing power. They are called healers. They are assigned mostly in the royal palace. They get hired by different countries. They have to go to the war with the army so that they can heal the soldiers. Since the number of healers is very few in number, they are highly demanded." Veronica slightly nodded. "I did. Whenever I saw injured birds or animals, I healed them." Arthur frowned. He didn't know there was a zoo inside the temple. "What kind of animals?" Veronica answered, "Cats, squirrels, rabbits, and dogs." "And, did no one see you healing them?" Arthur inquired. It amazed him how others in the temple had no clue that she had some kind of healing power. Veronica shook her head. "No one. I don't show off my skills." "If you did, you would have a better life," he shared his opinion. The fact was, healers had a simple lifestyle like the priests, but at least their lives weren't restricted. They could go to other countries although there were chances that they would die during the war. They could eat varieties of food, get presents from other royal families and live some other places with their spouses. In other words, compared to a priest's life, a healer's life was heavenly. Veronica stated, "My life isn't half bad now." Arthur became more curious about her. He walked side by side with her and asked, "When did you first learn that you are a healer?" Veronica tried to recall when she first healed something. Her memory was good. She didn't have to try too hard to remember. "At the age of 8, I healed a bird." Arthur didn't expect this number. He was stunned. "That's too young. How did you do that?" Veronica moved away from him and gave him a suspicious gaze. "I don't know." "And, why are you being so serious?" "You are scaring me." Arthur let out a deep breath. He explained, "Nika, not everyone can heal people like you, especially not when they are 8. I really like to know why you didn't let your seniors know. At least you know the healers have extra privileges." "It's not that I didn't want to. This power." She paused before continuing, "It doesn't work all the time. I did try to tell my senior. When she wanted to see my power, I couldn't show her. That's when I realized that this power isn't for showing off. It's only for healing." She added with a matter-of-fact tone, "So, my seniors didn't believe me and warned me not to lie anymore. But, I still tried to show them often. Gradually, they began to avoid me thinking I'm just a troublemaker." Only then Arthur understood her reasons. "So, that's why you couldn't tell anyone." It doesn't mean you don't want to show off. You couldn't show off. From what he saw, she liked to boast when she knew something or learned something new. Thus, for her not to tell others that she could heal injuries, wouldn't have been believable at all. Veronica nudged him with her elbow, frowning. Hey, what do you mean by that? Arthur caught her hand and squeezed it warmly. Nothing, let's go to a restaurant. You have never tried restaurant meals, have you? I will treat you for healing my wounds. Veronica's eyes sparkled with eagerness. She didn't forget to tell her preference, I'd like something sweet. Arthur snickered before agreeing to her request, all right. They walked past a few shops before stopping at Marina's Palace. Veronica hesitated when she saw that familiar place. She didn't have a good memory of this place after all. Arthur seemed to understand her concern. He tried to ease her worry, don't be bothered, princess. Tonight, you are a guest. Moreover, they won't recognize you. You were in disguise last time, were you not? That didn't ease Veronica's worry though. She replied, that may be the case, but 3 women still knew how I looked. They were the ones who dressed me up. Arthur understood. So, they knew that you had silver hair and covered it with false hair. False hair wasn't easy to obtain and there was no way she could get her hands on it. Veronica recalled that time and spoke in a gloomy tone, they said it was ugly. That's why I had to change it. Chapter 27. Rendezvous. You are listening at novelfull.audio. They said it was ugly. That's why I had to change it. Veronica was upset. She was always proud of her silver hair. I think it's far different from being ugly. Arthur smirked. He still couldn't forget about her alluring beauty that night. If she were to dress up with her silver hair, her demand would rise significantly. Since she wasn't a regular employee, they couldn't let others notice her. That's why they came up with this solution. They simply hid her hair. Arthur tugged her hood well so that her hair was covered properly. Tonight is no good either. Hide your hair. What? Do you think my hair is ugly? Veronica seemed hurt. No, it's so pretty that I don't want others to see it and admire you. Arthur playfully winked at her. Veronica's face reddened. What's with you all of a sudden? Arthur only laughed and marched forward without replying. He noticed that whenever he was with her, his days were enjoyable. Just as he said, no one recognized her. She was wearing decent clothes and most of her head apart from her face was covered under the hood. The female employees gawked at them when they first entered Marina's palace. It was the first time they saw Arthur with another woman. More importantly, they didn't know who that woman was. Arthur always sought pretty women whenever he came to Marina's palace. That's why all women, who had already spent their nights with him and had feelings for him, thought that he was single. Now that he came with a woman, they couldn't dare to ask nor could they handle their broken hearts. As usual, Arthur chose a private room for them to eat. Veronica had been in this place before. So, she didn't react much. However, she could feel some glares on her back. It gave her chills. Am I being hated? She couldn't help but ask. I apologize about that. Arthur closed the door and came back to his seat. As you can see, I'm very popular. Veronica threw a remark as she glared at him. Yeah, judging from the way girls were drooling over you, you are what they call a ladies' man. Arthur raised an eyebrow. Where did you hear that phrase from? I don't think the books you read in the temple have this kind of phrase. Veronica hurriedly looked away. Not there but in your library. Arthur caught up quickly. So you were spending your time reading romance books rather than working. No wonder you took such a long time cleaning my library. Hey, it was a big library, all right. Veronica retorted. After the meals were served, the two of them were left alone. Arthur taught her how to eat seafood and then asked her, so, how many books did you read while cleaning my library? Veronica was busy eating. She had never eaten anything so delicious before. Not that much. Only 2 romance books. Arthur complimented her reading skills. You are a fast reader. Do you read a lot? Veronica nodded in reply. Yes, this is the only way I can learn about this beautiful world. Arthur paused eating and looked at her. Do you still think the world is beautiful after experiencing bloodshed and assault firsthand? She frowned. Come on. Just because there are bad things, doesn't mean there is nothing good in there. If there wasn't, I wouldn't be alive right now. Veronica added, as long as something has a tiny bit of goodness, it's worth appreciating, that's what I have been taught. Arthur was surprised to hear that. He couldn't agree more. Whoever taught you that was a wise person. Veronica looked down. It was Sister Ruth. She taught me that. Arthur didn't mean to upset her. If he knew it would make her sad, he wouldn't have asked her this question. He stayed silent. He knew no matter what he would say, that wouldn't make her feel better. Veronica was the one who broke the silence. I still don't understand why she had to end her life like that. I will go back and try to find out the reason behind her death. Arthur gave her a quiet glance. He drank a mouthful of water and asked, do you mean to ask others about her death? Veronica answered, this is the only way. How am I supposed to learn about her if I don't ask the people around her? Arthur questioned her in return, didn't you say that the senior priests had no clue why she died? How can they answer your questions when they themselves didn't know? He shared his point of view, moreover, if you ask them, you will expose that you broke the curfew. Another crime will be added to your list. Can you handle all that? Veronica looked devastated. Then what am I supposed to do? Arthur asked her, do you want to know what I would do if I were you? Yes. Veronica vigorously nodded her head. He had an expression of satisfaction all over his face. He narrated shortly, go to her room when no one is watching. Check her belongings and see if you can find any diary where she used to write down her ideas. Veronica frowned deeply and looked at him suspiciously. Why does it sound like you have lots of experiences in that field? I'm using my brain right now, Arthur declared. While drinking soup, he mumbled, sometimes, she is too sharp. Veronica couldn't understand his last sentence. So, she asked, did you say something? He replied unhurriedly, nothing, nothing at all. For some reason, Veronica had a sense of déjà vu. After they were done having dinner, they went to the market square. There was a fountain in the square and street musicians would often show their performances. This way, they could show their talents and make the onlookers enjoy their music. Couples and children would gather here in the evening. They would play and dance along with the music. At that time, some people would sell street foods, toys and jewelry. Veronica was overwhelmed. I didn't know such a place even existed. She had to admit that she had never had so much fun before. I'm glad as long as you like it. Arthur smiled as she enjoyed the performances of the musicians. While he was looking at her, something unusual caught his eyes. Chapter 28. Suspicious people. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It wasn't usual for people to wear capes and hoods. The reason it made him interested was that under the capes, they were wearing pure white clothes. Arthur narrowed his sharp eyes. Only people connected to the temple would wear pure white clothes. Keeping a close eye on Veronica, he carefully stepped closer to those suspicious people. He wanted to know what they were asking other people. As he drew closer, he heard one of them saying, have you seen a girl about this tall, green eyes and silver hair? They were using their hands to show how tall the girl was. Arthur's golden orbs flickered. He had a feeling that something like this was going to happen. But, aren't they too late? Or maybe they had something else to take care of first. Thinking of Veronica's depressed expression, it reminded him about her senior sister Ruth. He strode toward Veronica and pulled her closer. He heard her gasping in shock. Before she could say anything, he mumbled, "Some people from the temple are looking for you." Veronica looked at him. Her complexion didn't look good. "Ha! Why?" Arthur raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean, why? You have been missing for a whole day." Veronica shook her head. She explained, "I don't mean that. The temple is a huge place, you know. Even if they don't see me anywhere, they should have looked for me in the temple or mountain area first. Why are they looking for me in the town when they know it's not easy for us to go to the town?" Arthur inquired, "Can you frequently go to the mountain zone?" Veronica nodded vigorously. Her answer was positive. "We certainly can. Some of us got lost there multiple times. When the guards came the next day, they rescued us. If your information is correct, then they should have gone to the mountain, they shouldn't be in here." Arthur furrowed his eyebrows. "What do you want to do? Do you want to talk to them or go to the temple on your own?" Veronica looked down and pondered about it deeply before raising her head. "I want to go to the temple on my own. There is still a chance that they don't know where I am. Maybe they are searching for me in both the mountain range and the town." Arthur gave her a suspicious look. "Why does it seem like you are experienced in this field? For a person who hardly went outside, she shouldn't be able to think so clearly when people were looking for her." Veronica avoided his gaze and replied lightly, "You are imagining things." Now she is making me more curious, Arthur thought. He decided to drag her elsewhere and grabbed her hand. "Let's get out of here before they catch us." "Okay," Veronica had no reason not to agree. They went back to his house and then sat down on the sofa. Arthur sighed. "Wherever you go, you bring trouble, don't you, princess?" Veronica took a glass of water and drank it half before protesting against his claim, "Why would I bring trouble? It's you who jinxed it." "Oh, did I?" Arthur raised the corner of his lips. "Why does this scenario seem like we are two lovebirds eloping from your rich parents?" Veronica's face flushed under his tease. "Who are lovebirds? Don't talk nonsense." She sat on the couch next to him and mumbled, "What am I going to do for the next 4 hours? I'm bored." Arthur suggested, "You can read books. There are plenty of romance books in the library." "Can I?" Veronica's eyes giggled in joy. Arthur agreed quite easily, "Sure, go right ahead. No one will bother you. If you are hungry, go to the kitchen. You can find snacks there." "You are the best," saying that she ran off to the library. She is so fickle-minded. Just at noon, she said that she hated me. Now, I suddenly became the best person. Arthur let out a laugh and went to his study room. A man was waiting for him. The person was covered in black clothes. He was standing next to the table. Arthur wasn't surprised to see someone waiting for him in his study room. He knew someone was here and that's why he let Veronica go to the library. However, he was surprised to see the man who was there. "Sebastian, why is it you? Where is Felix?" Sebastian knelt on the floor and bowed. "I'm sorry, master. I've failed you." BDNV Arthur crossed the room, sat down, and then leaned against the chair. "Where is Felix?" His tone was colder. Sebastian gulped. His heart shuddered in fear. "Master, he died. Some mercenaries killed him. We found his dead body in the forest. Those mercenaries were slaughtered too. We don't know who killed them. But there was a trace of a woman." "I was the one who killed a bunch of trash in the woods," Arthur coldly refuted. "It looks like the people she saw killing a man was Felix. That's why they were after her. If I only knew." He shut his eyes as regret filled his eyes. He opened his mouth and questioned Sebastian, "Why did they kill Felix?" Sebastian didn't dare to raise his head. He answered, "I haven't found that out yet. I'm still investigating it. You came to inform me without knowing anything." Arthur slammed the table. Sebastian's throat was dry. I thought I needed to inform you about Felix's death. Arthur's voice was chillingly cold when he spoke. How come he let himself die like that? He was supposed to be the best man. Sebastian hesitated before saying, it looks like he was drowning in sorrow and didn't have the reason to fight. I forgot to mention, the mercenaries sliced his face. I couldn't recognize him if it weren't for his clothes and the amulet you gave him. Is that so? Arthur tapped the table without a word. Time passed slowly. Sebastian was sweating even though the temperature of the room dropped significantly. Arthur instructed him, give me the amulet and destroy the trace of the woman that was found in the forest. After a pause, he added, also, there is another thing you have to do. Chapter 29. Time to leave. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Growl, ah. I'm hungry. Veronica looked down at her stomach. Is it just me or my stomach became a glutton in a day, she wondered inwardly. She closed the book after bookmarking it. Then, she stood up and went inside the house. She remembered Arthur mentioning snacks. I want to taste those snacks, bl.net. She went to the kitchen and looked for a jar where he could put some snacks. In the end, she found a bowl that was covered with a lid. When she opened it, she found breads wrapped around meat and vegetables. What's that? Veronica took it and had a large bite. After chewing for a while, her face became radiant. It's so yummy. I'm glad you like it. This is called a sandwich, Arthur replied from the dining room. Veronica was startled by his sudden arrival. The food caught on her throat and she began to cough. Easy there, Arthur gave her a glass of water and patted her back. When Veronica calmed down, she glared at him. Why can't you make sound when you walk, she accused him. Arthur apologized, my bad. I didn't think you would choke. He took out a golden pocket watch and checked the time. It's time already. We will leave after you are done eating. Veronica felt her stomach tightening. Now I'm nervous, she confessed. Even if you are nervous, you have to go back or else you won't find the reason for your senior's death. Arthur's smile was rueful. Veronica noticed his unusual expression and asked, did something happen? You don't look well. Arthur controlled his expression and quietly answered, nothing happened. I'm all right. It's just I'm going to miss a non-paid assistant. He skillfully diverted her attention. Who is your non-paid assistant? Veronica grumbled with a flushed face. You were so docile even last night. But today, you have completely changed. Did you forget that I'm your savior? Arthur teased her. If I knew you that you would keep reminding me about you being my savior, I wouldn't have wanted to be saved by you. How can you be so shameless, she complained. Arthur seemed hurt by her accusation. How can you be so ungrateful? I saved you and you call me shameless. Shouldn't you call me your hero? Veronica snickered. Pfft, don't make me laugh. You are anything but a hero, you playboy. Should I teach you how a playboy acts? Arthur stepped closer. Veronica already had a lesson today. She didn't need another one. She quickly finished the remaining sandwich and wiped her mouth. I'm done. Let's get out. Looks like my teaching paid off. Feeling satisfied, Arthur followed her in tow. When they reached a familiar alley, Veronica paused. All right, this is where we are parting. She took off the cape and gave it back to him. Arthur asked her, are you sure you are okay wearing this nightgown of yours? You might face danger. I can follow you to the entrance. Don't worry about me. I won't face any danger, Veronica assured him. If she took another turn, she could find the back door of the kitchen. That's why she felt safe. As long as you are safe. If you go out again, come and meet me. Arthur was slightly reluctant to part with her. He hesitantly added, another thing, if you need help with investigation, come to me anytime. I will do that. Veronica suddenly smiled. I couldn't have enjoyed today without you. Thank you for everything you have done for me. Wait, rather than hearing you say, thank you, I would like to have this. Arthur instantly leaned forward and stole her lips. Dot. Veronica was stunned. She wasn't prepared for it. She placed her hands on his chest and pushed him hard. However, her strength was nothing compared to his. Arthur didn't budge even a tiny bit, rather, he pulled her by her waist and deepened the kiss. He sucked her lower lip and then licked with his tongue. Veronica gasped in surprise. Her lips slightly parted, and that's when she sensed something soft entering her mouth. Her body trembled. Arthur's tongue explored inside her mouth and ravaged her saliva. She had a sweet scent that made his intoxicated. The foreign object moved around and made her heart shudder. Her instinctively moved her tongue, but he soon found her. He wrapped her tongue with his and sucked it. She softly moaned. Before she knew it, her tongue was poking him and fighting against him. Without her knowing, she made the kiss more intense. Is she trying to kiss me or fight against me? Arthur let out a groan. He opened his eyes and his golden pupils gazed at her passionately. He saw her thick, long eyelashes. They were trembling. Her cheeks were tinted with several shades of red. He sensed her soft breasts were pressed against his firm chest. He could see her cleavage. It reminded him of the heated night when she was drunk. He narrowed his eyes. His golden orbs flickered with desire. All of a sudden, he pressed her against the wall and held her firmly. Afterward, he changed the angle and nibbled her upper lips. He felt her arms around his back, clutching his clothes. Noticing that she was refusing his kiss, the corners of his lips raised slightly. Whenever he heard her soft moans, he deepened the kiss. He wanted to devour her lips. The world is dying, evil power is growing. Someone sang loudly in the dark. In the quiet back alley, the sound was too loud. It was the voice of a drunk man. It made both of them alarmed. Arthur was harshly breathing. He glanced at Veronica, whom he pinned down. He saw her disheveled state and pulled away from her. Without balance, Veronica began to fall. Arthur quickly caught her and embraced her slender body. Veronica was panting hard. She didn't have any strength left in her legs. Her head was fuzzy. Her head had yet to start working. Chapter 30. To the Temple. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Veronica closed the door and her body slumped against the wooden door. She recalled his fierce kiss. After that, his long fingers gently brushed over her silver locks. When she regained her strength, he pecked on her cheek and whispered in her ear, "I'll be waiting." Thinking about his deep voice, Veronica's heart skipped a beat. Her ears turned red. She covered her face and cursed him inwardly, playboy. She calmed her heart and stood up. I better get going. Seeing no one around, she strode to the tower and climbed the stairs as silently as possible. It was 2 a.m. and everyone was asleep. That's why she didn't see anyone. But when she reached the door to her room, her heart became light. She sighed in relief and opened the door. I need to sleep. It was a long day, she thought. She didn't dare to light the candles thinking someone might notice her. She had become extra careful after seeing too many dead bodies recently. As she was about to sit on the bed, someone grabbed her arm. Ah! Veronica yelled in fear. It felt like her heart had left the ribcage. She was forcefully laid on the bed and something hovered over her. How could you do this to us? A voice hissed in fury. Veronica relaxed her body upon hearing a familiar voice. Catherine. You freaked me out. A dirty blonde-haired girl pressed Veronica against the bed. I freaked you out. What do you think you did? You were just gone for a whole day and we couldn't find you anywhere. Just because I showed you a way to go out, doesn't mean you can disappear for a whole day. And, you didn't even finish your work. Judging from her voice, Veronica could understand how furious her childhood friend was. They grew up together. How could she not know her friend? Veronica's eyes trembled as her eyes were tickled by the edge of her friend's hair who had 2 plaits. Veronica adjusted her eyesight in the dark and was able to see her friend properly. Catherine was also wearing a nightgown. She must have come here after everyone went to sleep. She must have been worried sick. Veronica explained in a calm tone, I didn't mean to stay out for a whole night. I fell asleep and couldn't wake up because I was too tired. Catherine moved away from her friend and retaliated, you were tired. What an excuse. Why didn't you meet me yesterday? I thought you would leave early and then come back. Veronica slowly sat up and replied, I was working all day. I barely had anything for dinner. And you still went out. Catherine could barely believe her friend's stupidity. I had something to take care of. Veronica hid the fact that she had met a man who almost laid her and ate her mouth multiple times. Catherine covered her head and said, how could you do this? Do you know how mad Sister Josephine was? I can imagine. Veronica's body slumped. You have no idea. Sister Ruth died suddenly. Catherine's voice sounded like something caught in her throat. Veronica flinched at the mention of Sister Ruth. Her friend continued, they said she had some kind of illness and never told others in case others would worry. As a result, she died so early. Did she have an illness? Veronica was astonished. She took a trip down memory lane and thought of last night's event. Sister Mary was crying and saying how Sister Ruth took her own life. Taking one's own life can be a sickness. Isn't that absurd? But, why would they say that? They can't be lying, right? Veronica laughed inwardly and brushed off the thought. From her point of view, there was no reason for the priests to lie. They taught her to always speak the truth. There was no reason for them to lie about the death of a sister of the temple. No matter how many times she thought about it, she couldn't find any reason for the senior priests to lie to them. Catherine didn't like the silence in the room. She told us that she was going to appoint you as an assistant priest. How could you blow your chance like that? Veronica's train of thought broke and she came back to her senses. Did they search for me in the mountain? Catherine replied, of course they did. How many times did you ditch your duties and stroll around the mountains? Sister Josephine waited till noon thinking you would stop being childish and come back. Since you didn't return, she sent 2 groups to the mountain range after lunch. Veronica tried to clarify, are you sure? I saw some people looking for me in the town. Catherine's eyes grew bigger. Did you see our guards? They were in disguise. I'm not sure. Besides, she wasn't able to see properly who was searching for her. Before she could, Arthur grabbed her and dragged her away. Whenever she thought of Arthur, his wild touch on her lips came to her mind. Veronica lowered her head and tried to forget that sinful act. Catherine asked, what are you going to tell Sister Josephine when she asks you about your whereabouts for yesterday? Veronica cooled her heart and answered, I'll tell her that I was in the mountains. Catherine sighed. And here I was rejoicing that you would finally become an assistant priest. You really know how to ruin your future. Veronica laid on the bed and said, future, why are people so obsessed with this word? The present is always the best. Catherine stated, you think like that because you have no ambition. Veronica rolled on the bed and defended herself, who said I don't. I want to see the world. Do you? What did you do to make that wish come true? Let me answer, nothing. You did nothing. That means the wish you were talking about is nothing but a daydream, Catherine mercilessly pointed that out. Veronica was going to say something when the bedroom door was opened and someone stepped in. Did you have enough fun, Veronica?